Welcome to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here at the News Forum, where all voices matter. Canada's ports are vital links in our supply chain and gateways. Without them, we cannot bring our goods to market. And recent statistics show Canada's ports export $90 billion of our products and brought in $110 billion of our imports by value. Here to discuss this crucial part of our economy are Brad Pettit, he is the Director of Port Operations, Stewart World Port BC. And Mike Warren is also joining us. He's the Business Development Representative, ISG Intermodal Containerized Bulk Handling Systems. Welcome, gentlemen. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you, Tony.
Brad, maybe we'll get started with you and go to Mike thereafter. Maybe just describe from your perspective. I've given an introduction, but you guys are the experts. So Brad, why are the ports so important to the Canadian economy?
Well, we're a resource-based economy, and so we need these outlets, these corridors to ship our goods, to bring finished products in. And as we grow, like we've really kept the same ports for many, many years in the country. And as we grow, I think we need new corridors out of Canada, linking to the worldwide economy.
So why don't you talk about your port a little bit, maybe describe to our viewers what you're all about.
Okay, we're a private facility north of Prince Rupert, so we're one of the most northern ports in BC. We are the most northern port in BC. Okay. And we constructed the port in 2015, and so we do break bulk cargo, like project cargo right now, and then we do some smaller amounts of bulk cargo. We do have plans to expand the port to handle all kinds of bulk materials and whatnot from mining and ultimately from forestry. And as soon, if we could get a rail corridor into a new port like that, it would open up the whole Canadian economy to the Asian market.
So before we go to Mike, tell us, Brad, how much did it take? Like, what was the cost of actually creating that port if it opened in 2015?
We spent over $70 million of private money on the port itself.
Okay.
We've done a few the land improvements and then the actual wharf proper itself. And then we built some buildings and whatnot we have a cement building, storage building, and we have some maintenance shops and stuff like that. So all in total, we spent over $70 million and we continue to spend money on the port.
Mike Warren, maybe tell us a little bit about your business and the importance of ports.
Yes, Tony, I was introduced to the containerized bulk handling system about 6 years ago, and I learned that it had been developed down in Australia about 10 years ago, and where they had an iron ore miner that was looking for a way to market for his product, and he ended up buying a fleet of containers and taking them to an existing container terminal at the Port of Adelaide, Australia. This precluded him from having to go through all of the environmental permitting process to build a big new and costly facility. He was able to use existing infrastructure. So I took a real keen interest in this and have been promoting it to the mining and the forestry and agricultural industry for the last 5 or 6 years.
And sorry, how does it differ from the technology, I suppose, that was available now? Is it the idea that containers are handling materials differently? Is that what you're looking at, Mike?
Absolutely, Tony. Yes. Traditionally, bulk materials moved by either bulk truck or by bulk rail cars from the source to the port. They were unloaded into a storage warehouse or a silo. And then when the vessel loading time comes, they would load with a ship loader or some form of a conveyor system. Right. This containerized system allows the owner to put the product in the container. It has a removable lid. The containers are designed specifically for bulk products. So you would have the container at the source. You would take the lid off, fill the container, put the lid on, and then it would either be trucked or it'd be railed or barged in some cases to a port. And what makes it unique is that the containers are all manufactured to ISO standard, meaning that the sizes, meaning they can be handled by any type of standard container handling equipment.
Gotcha. Well, we're going to continue this conversation. We're already at our first break. It didn't take long to get there. Obviously, we've got two important guests with us, and we'll be right back with them after these messages, so please stay with us. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, talking about the ports system here in Canada. We've got Brad Pettit. He is the Director of Port Operations at Stewart World Port BC, and also Mike Warren is with us. He is the Business Development Representative, ISG Intermodal Containerized Bulk Handling Systems. Mike, just continue with you just for a second. So tell us a little bit about what the challenges are. You know, obviously global innovation is kind of key to your story. So just tell us what it's like to work in Canada, some of the challenges that you're facing.
Well, some of the challenges, Tony, are the lack of sufficient rail infrastructure. We quite often end up having to truck great distances to a port facility because we don't have the rail infrastructure in place. That can get costly. Rail, as everyone knows, is a less costly mode of transportation. So that's an issue for us. Also, developing some of the smaller ports. I think that could greatly increase our export capabilities throughout Canada for agricultural products, forestry products, and in particular, mineral products, mineral concentrates.
And Brad Pettit, you mentioned before the break a little bit of the challenge with rail. Maybe expand on that a little bit and some of the other things that you're working on to meet some of your challenges.
Well, I think we've had customers approach us about the rotainer option that Mike's referring to. I think that allows the smaller players in the door, smaller mines, specialty agricultural products, things like that. But without a rail corridor, you have to truck it into Stewart. Right now, we have a great highway system for heavy loads and everything else. But without that rail corridor, the cost of transport gets significant for places like Saskatchewan and Manitoba and Alberta. And so the rail corridor is key to opening up the country in general. And I think that's evidenced by, C to C to C as a foundation. I think they've actually submitted to the National Assessment for Infrastructure. And they speak to that quite in great detail about rail corridors and whatnot.
Yeah, so let me just delve into that a little bit more. So correct me if I'm wrong, but we badly need some more investment in rail corridors and upgrade rail links and so on. So is that a matter of concern and discussion right now, Brad?
It is throughout the ports and through different, we deal with different government bodies in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and they're very interested in expanding our rail capabilities in the country. And it just kind of goes hand in hand with GDP and growth. You can't stick with the same corridors forever and ever because the country is growing and the needs of the market is growing.
Mike Warren, obviously you've picked up some ideas from overseas and different markets. Is Canada, are we competitive and very open to some of these new ideas, or is this a hard slog for you?
Well, I believe that it is very open. When I first got involved, I approached a lot of the mining companies here in BC that are shipping mineral concentrates, and many of them were very, very interested. They could see the advantages of the system. What I did run up against was they didn't want to be the first ones. So that was a tough slog, trying to convince one of them to start first. And we've done that now. Starting at the end of this year, we'll have a copper gold mine in southern BC. We'll start to export their copper gold concentrate through a terminal on the Fraser River using our system. They've acquired about 700 containers. The terminal has acquired 3 rotating spreaders to do the loading. And that's going to be the first one of its type in Canada. And I fully expect there to be a lot of interest and some follow-up after that.
Right, right. So you're starting to get some pickup, and how are you getting that financed?
Well, at the moment, in this particular case, the mine wanted to purchase the goods themselves, and same thing with the terminal operator. However, in all cases, we have offered financing, leasing, financing arrangements. Now, there has been some discussion about the federal government maybe taking an interest in this, in which that would really open up some doors and change the whole scheme of supplying rotainers throughout the country.
We're going to have to take another break, guys. We'll take a break, but we'll be right back with this important topic and this important issue. Please stay with us. We'll be back after these messages. And we're back here at Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, talking about ports and infrastructure, here with Brad Pettit. He is the Director of Port Operations at Stewart World Port, BC, and Mike Warren, who is the Business Development Representative for ISG, Intermodal Containerized Bulk Handling Systems. Brad, love to get we were just talking before the break about financing of these kinds of things. Obviously, you had a big financing to create the port in Stewart. Tell us a little bit about your story about financing and some of the challenges, but also the opportunities.
Well, our port has been totally funded privately.
Okay.
We will require funding for future expansions. Some of that will come from mining companies. Some will come from the clients. Some will likely come from economic development banks and places like that, and then some bank financing.
So how hard or easy was it to get all that arranged for the first go round?
It wasn't that difficult because we had a private investor that had significant cash on hand,
okay.
And so it wasn't that difficult for the first round. It will be, we'll need to have contracts in hand and all the things that you need to get financing in general. So I don't think it'll be that difficult because the opportunity is there, and we'll have contracts in hand with clients for bulk handling and whatnot. And I think there's also lots of opportunity in both the railway and the containerized bulk handling for Indigenous communities, because it allows these small players into the game, and there's opportunities for green energy use on the rail, like electrified rail system, a spur line into Stewart. There's opportunities for an Indigenous group to own containers and lease them to the smaller mines that need, like the volume of containers needed for a mine may start off small, grow, and then drop off again as the mine life goes down. So these smaller players, there's a good opportunity for Indigenous groups, and they can get various financing through government bodies and whatnot as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And obviously, the federal government, provincial governments are looking for ways to advance Indigenous economic activity and get new Indigenous businesses up and running. So have you already, Brad, had some experience with Indigenous suppliers and contractors, or is this something that you're foreseeing for the future?
No, we continually work with Indigenous groups and communities. We're on Nisga'a traditional territory, and we work with them all the time. And I know the mines do as well. And I know our railway, we have a finance company working on our railway spur right now. They're looking to finance it. They're trying to partner with the different Indigenous groups and whatnot. So everybody is involved with the Indigenous groups. We want to stay involved, and we'll continue to do that.
Mike Warren, any comments on either Indigenous involvement or, from your perspective, your company's perspective, environmental factors? Any of those play in?
Yes, absolutely. That is, again, one of the big advantages of the containerized bulk handling system is it's probably the most environmentally friendly system for handling bulk, particularly mineral concentrates, where there is some toxicity involved. Being that the product is put into a sealed container, locking lid on it, it doesn't see the light of day until it's in the bottom of the ship being unloaded. So it is very, very environmentally friendly, and which I believe most First Nations embrace. That's what they're all about. They fully embrace environmental practices, and I believe that the more they learn about this method of handling materials, the more they're going to embrace that as well.
Mike, we're obviously in an election campaign now, so that's a new factor just starting this week. So do you foresee or are hoping for the political parties to focus in on some of the issues like infrastructure?
Yes, I sure am. I believe it should be a hot topic. There's a lot of jobs to be created. It opens up the economy. It sets the tone for future economic benefits. As you may or may not know, Tony, we're entering into what's being referred to as a super cycle in the mining industry.
Right.
We typically go through a cycle every decade. Well, this one, I haven't seen anything like it. The number of mining projects that I'm following right now that are being proposed and developed is just really, really incredible.
We'll be right back after these messages. Please stay with us. And here we are. Welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Brad Pettit, Mike Warren, talking about infrastructure, ports, and basically how to make sure that Canada can get its products to the world. Mike, you were talking about infrastructure. I want you to certainly continue your thought, and then we'll hear Brad's point of view as well.
I wanted to mention, Tony, that using the containerized bulk handling system allows an exporter to get his product to market without the need for very costly marine infrastructure. You don't need a large ship loader. You don't need a heavy duty facility. All you need is in some cases you can use the ship's own gear for loading. These loading apparatus, they're called revolvers. They can be used on a ship's own crane. They can be used on a mobile harbor crane. Down at Fraser Surrey Terminal here, they're going to be used on existing ship-to-shore gantry cranes. So I think it opens up the opportunity to export bulk materials from locations that maybe hadn't been considered in the past due to the cost of developing infrastructure there.
Yeah, very interesting. Brad, wanted to get your 2 cents worth on the infrastructure debate. We're into an election campaign right now. A lot of the parties are going to be making their promises when it comes to infrastructure. Tell us your perspective on these things.
Well, I think all the parties are going to speak to infrastructure to some degree. I think the one difference is when you build new corridors and when you talk about different things like Mike's container system, I think environment comes up all the time. And I think, we only have this one Earth, and the Indigenous folks are right in tune with that. And I think, with a new corridor, a new facility, all new infrastructure, including our port, it has to be built with the highest degree of environmental consideration. And, when you seal up a container, it never sees the light of day until it actually is in the ship hold. That goes a long way to protecting the environment from spillage and everything. Our dock was designed with the environment and spillage in mind to contain everything that comes out of there. And then the rail can be electrified and it can run on hydrogen. It can be run on electric trains. There's a lot of different options for them now. And you can I think the environment's going to play a big role in all of this.
So Brad, what does the Canadian government or Canada more generally have to do more of to take advantage of these opportunities that you've expressed?
Some of these things just can't happen without some form of funding. And whether it's through the national banks, the infrastructure banks, they have to get that money out there and put to use. And I think, you don't have to overcomplicate it. You just have to open up the corridors. And so I think C2C that has a good map of the various corridors that are possible. And I think you just simply have to open them up and get that access to Tidewater.
Mike Warren, you're probably going to get the last word. We've got just over a minute to go here. So what would you like to see more of in terms of federal government, Canadian governments, but also more generally?
Well, I think Brad nailed it. I think I'd like to see the infrastructure, the transportation infrastructure, roads, rails, particularly to the northern part of Canada. That would I think, go a long ways to helping boost the economy, creating jobs. A lot of our First Nations communities are in the north. They could benefit from that. I could just see some really good things coming from spending money on the infrastructure in northern Canada.
And do you, we got about 30 seconds left. Do you see the ports being a critical element of this?
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. There's going to be mining and forestry and agriculture, of course, going on, and that needs to find a way to market. And it's a long haul, from the middle of Saskatchewan to the west coast of British Columbia to haul products to. If we can develop some of the northern ports, we can reduce that transportation costs, and at the same time create jobs and economic benefit for First Nations.
Well, gentlemen, Mike Warren from ISG Intermodal and Brad Pettit from Stewart World Port, BC. Great to have you on the program. Very, very interesting for our viewers. Best of luck with your projects.
Thank you.
Thank you. So it's pretty clear from that episode that ports and their operations are pretty critical to Canada's economic well-being and future, both for imports and exports. A lot happening in these areas and a lot of entrepreneurial activity, something we'll continue to follow. Thanks for watching this episode. It's been an interesting one.